Tune into NiceRadio every Saturday at 7:30 a.m. for A View from the Outside, hosted by Brereton Horne. A View from the Outside takes a look at key issues affecting St. Vincent and the Grenadines and gives a global perspective on how these issues are viewed. Host Brereton Horne will examine a variety of topics to enlighten, stimulate debate, and explore solutions. Hear the facts, hear the real-life stories, hear A View from the Outside. Join Brereton Horne at 7:30 a.m. every Saturday on NiceRadio for A View from the Outside.
On A View from the Outside this week being the 10th of November 2018, we look at Vigilant, or being vigilant, V-I-G-I-L-A-N-T, vigilant, with the view being that the time has come for all Vincentians to be vigilant pertaining to the performance of the government and must endeavour always to hold the government accountable. The Cambridge Dictionary defines vigilant as always being careful to notice things, especially possible danger. And the Collins Dictionary says that someone who is vigilant gives careful attention to a particular problem or situation and concentrates on noticing any danger or trouble that there might be. On the 6th of May 2000, Nelson Mandela, after whom the Leeward Highway is named, put out a statement in which he made the call to leaders, the media, and effectively to everyone else to be vigilant and not let up. This is what Nelson Mandela said. Be ever vigilant. Hold governments accountable. Struggle for peace and justice. Do not let up for a moment, for there is no circumstance in which neglect or abuse can ever be tolerated. At the time of that statement, Nelson Mandela was specifically addressing the issue of building partnerships for the protection of the rights of children and adolescents across the globe. We, on A View from the Outside, are today adopting that quotation and broadening the issue and calling upon all Vincentians to adopt it also. In that quotation, Nelson Mandela has asked us to be vigilant. And so, we on A View from the Outside say, we must always be on guard. We must always be careful to notice things. And we must always be careful to notice danger. Notice the things which affect your life on a daily basis. Notice where the priorities of the government lie. Do their priorities lie in creating a job for you and the members of your family? Or is their priority to present a budget which is not about jobs? Do their priorities lie in providing proper and accessible health care for all? Or is their priority to take themselves and their families or family members overseas when they need health care? Do their priorities lie in solving crime and providing a safe environment for the country, for you and the members of your family? Or is their priority more focused on becoming a non-voting member of the United Nations Security Council? In being vigilant and noticing where their priorities lie, you must look to see where they place their emphasis, and your answer will lie there also. Nelson Mandela also told us to be vigilant. Told us to be vigilant, and that in being vigilant, we must hold governments accountable. And we, on A View from the Outside, are reiterating the call to all Vincentians, to all of you, to be vigilant and to hold the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines accountable. Yes, Nelson Mandela has tasked you. He has tasked us with the responsibility to hold the government accountable. You must ensure that you are aware of what the government is doing and ensure that you hold them accountable. In being vigilant and in your efforts to demand accountability of the government, you must demand that they provide accountability for the construction of the Argyle Airport. Demand that they provide that accountability in the way dictated by the Constitution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the highest law of the land. Demand that they lay before the House of Parliament of St. Vincent and the Grenadines accounts which are audited and approved by the Auditor General of the country. Demand also that they lay before Parliament, in a similar way, accounts for other capital projects which they have obtained monies through Parliament for. Be vigilant and demand accountability for the millions of dollars of Petrocarib money which flowed from the government and people of Venezuela to the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Be vigilant and demand that the government ends the dynasty which it is forging in the country. Let the government know that it is unethical and totally wrong for the wife of the Minister of Finance, the man who is responsible for the country's purse strings, for her to be the head or the executive director of the Financial Services Authority, an authority over which her husband, the Minister of Finance, has oversight. Let the government know that it is wrong for her to be the gatekeeper of the most important regulatory institution in the country when her husband is the Minister of Finance and her husband's father, her father-in-law, is the Prime Minister of the country. Be vigilant and let them know that such an operation is wholly wrong. We cannot sit back and allow the government to go on without holding them accountable. We cannot. Nelson Mandela also asked us to be vigilant and struggle for peace and justice. And we must do that. We cannot sit back and be seized by fear and do nothing while injustice is meted out to many across the country, especially those who are perceived not to support the government. We cannot remain silent while our neighbors, our family members, our fellow citizens suffer injustice after injustice. We must join the struggle, be vigilant, and demand justice for all. Demand justice in relation to the election petitions, which continue to languish in the local courts since the general elections of December 2015. One cannot forget that the appeal court, or the Court of Appeal, for more than a year now, said that the petitions must be heard expeditiously. Well, expeditiously has taken on a new meaning in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We must demand justice for Yogi Farrell, the poor young girl who has faced the wrath of an entire establishment. Demand justice for all of the other girls like Yogi Farrell, including the so-called Parliament girls. Demand justice for all of the victims of human suffering. Demand justice for all of those who suffer abuse, including the women and children who are raped and suffer untold abuse. Demand justice for Bigger Biggs. Demand justice for Marcus B. Freitas. Demand justice for Randolph Toussaint. Demand justice for Otto Sam. Demand justice for Kenroy Johnson, Addison Dash Thomas, and Elvis Daniel. Demand justice for all of the workers of Bukama who remain unpaid. Demand justice for all of the former homeowners at Argyle who had their property compulsorily acquired about a decade ago to build the Argyle Airport and who up to now have not been paid for their property. We must demand justice for all of those to whom injustice was meted out, including those who had to leave the country because they couldn't take it anymore. As Nelson Mandela said, we must be vigilant and not let up for a moment. We must not relax, no matter how they ridicule us. Every opportunity we get, we must demand justice. Nelson Mandela also said that we must not tolerate neglect or abuse. So, do not tolerate the neglect of the roads, of which many, especially the inner roads, are currently in the most dilapidated conditions they have ever been in. We must not tolerate the neglect of the school buildings. We must not tolerate the neglect of the clinics around the country. We must not tolerate the neglect in and around the capital, Kingstown. We must not tolerate the unkempt state in which it is in. Yes, Vincentians, let us be vigilant and not tolerate neglect or abuse in any shape or form. Nelson Mandela was a wise man. The government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has recognized his worth, so much so that they named the Leeward Highway after him. He has given us excellent advice. Surely, we owe it to our forefathers. In fact, we owe it to all of our forebears, including the brave women. And we owe it to ourselves to follow his advice. Just as a reminder, this is what Nelson Mandela encouraged us to do. And I quote, "Be ever vigilant. Hold governments accountable. Struggle for peace and justice. Do not let up for a moment, for there is no circumstance in which neglect or abuse can ever be tolerated." Vincentians, let us all, in our endeavor to be vigilant, use those wise words of Nelson Mandela as a guide. Until next week, Justin and all of the listeners, this is Brereton Horne with a view from the outside. And with a reminder to send your feedback, as usual, to aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. That's aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. Have a pleasant Saturday. Have a wonderful Sunday. And have a productive week ahead with everyone being vigilant. All the best to you, Justin, and the listeners.
Oh, yes, thank you so much.